Welcome into Triple Zero's The Anti-Hot Take Sports Show. I am your host, Josh Buckhalter. Be sure to follow me on X at Josh G Buck. Follow the show on X at Clocker Sports and at 30 Pod, actually, 30 Pod, the number 30 Pod. And follow the site, Clocker Sports, on X and on Instagram as well. And then Facebook pages, 30 Pod, and of course, Clocker Sports. And then the website is Clocker Sports at clockersports.com. You can reach me at contact@clockersports.com. And so, been a while, obviously, a little bit rusty, and I think I've said that before. I think one of the most telltale signs about how long it has been is that my settings on my computer have reset. And so, I was actually supposed to record this 2 days ago, right? Went about doing that and then realized that it was game one of the NBA Finals, and I am going to talk about that at some point in the second half of the show, so I didn't want to not have any pertinent information anymore after the game had already taken place when the pod was just about to go up. Game two, after that, I'm skipping a little ahead here. I was going to record the next day, and then came to find out that my settings had been reset on my computer, and now I am dealing with a really annoying echo in my headphones. It's not affecting the recording. I've already gone frontwards and backwards checking the recordings, both video and audio, to make sure there's no double up of the voices, but it's in my ear. And if anybody's ever recorded with the slight echo, especially in the OBS, man, it is just a pain in the tail. So I'm trying to work through that, but I gotta get content out. I have to re-kick the podcast back off. There's a lot of revamping I still want to do to it, mostly to the intro. There is a typo in my intro, in my damn name, and I just can't have it. So I want to freshen it up a little bit and get a little bit more of the footage that we have from the show. You know, we have had a lot of great guests in the past year plus 2 years, I think it has been since we started this. So I definitely want to freshen up how it kicks off and kind of get started on a good foot and trying to, like I said, be more consistent, because it's just been something that I've put on the back burner far too often when it doesn't take that long, right? I can give you 30, 45 minutes of good content, man. That's what I do. So that being said, we have a great show lined up to kick off the return of the pod as we try to navigate through the downtime in the offseason, which is a funny time to start the pod, to be honest with you. But there's an open space for it because there's not a lot of NBA and NFL action going on at this time of year. I'm watching spring ball right now, the UFL on ABC. I think the conference championship between the Michigan Panthers and the Birmingham Stallions, something like that, man. I'm not a big UFL guy. Maybe I'll get into it next time around if they stick around for the next season. But it's on, and it's sports, and there's not enough baseball that I want to watch on right now. So that's what we're doing to navigate. And like I said, got a great show. We're going to talk about the Bears minicamp wrap up. I was there for 2 days out of the 3, the second 2 days out of the 3. I guess the final 2 days, not the second 2 days, the final 2 days out of the 3. So I have a recap of that, some Caleb Williams thoughts, some questions that I may have coming out, and some of the things that may have surprised me. We're going to talk around the rest of the NFL, and I think that might be the biggest change that people are going to notice. Anybody who's followed the show for a long time, if you're still around, I appreciate you first and foremost. Secondly, though, you will notice a change in how we kind of format stuff. I used to, maybe struggle. I guess it would be a good word, because maybe that contributed to why there was some spiders in the delivery. But just with trying to bounce around with finding topics, I am going to stick to the topics that I'm covering most first, above all things, and then I'll touch on some of the other major storylines around the NFL and the NBA as we get through them. But I definitely want to be as knowledgeable and as in-depth as possible about the things that I'm going to present, and therefore it makes it easy to do with the myriad beats that I'm covering. It makes it easy to bring those to the table than trying to find out all I can about a fringe topic that is hot right now, but I'm not necessarily being tuned into for the duration. So that being said, like I said, we're going to kick off with the Bears minicamp. Then we're going to bounce around to the rest of the NFL, go to the Broncos. They're facing a lawsuit from one of their former players, cover the Chiefs and the player who had a seizure on the field, in a meeting, and then the Vikings. And I got some praise for the Vikings. As a Bears fan, it's hard to do, but covering the team and seeing what they've done, this one move especially, they deserve some praise, so we'll cover that as well. And then on the NBA side, we're going to get into the finals game 1 reaction, set the stage for game 2. Jason Kidd made some very interesting comments that I think a lot of people actually agree with, or more people than you might imagine would agree with when they hear them. Obviously, got to cover the Bulls and how they keep doing what they do. Nothing surprising there. Some not surprising, I guess, still admission, but definitely an admission for DeMar DeRozan. Talk about the Hawks in the first draft pick and what they should do with their offseason plans. Touch on the Lakers. I wrote something about the Knicks that I want to get into, and then also the Sixers and their options this offseason. So that being said, man, we're going to get right into it and start, like I said, with the Bears and their minicamp wrap up. Got a chance to witness in person the Caleb Williams experience, and to be honest with you, it was what I expected of a rookie quarterback. Some uneven, a lot of good stuff, right? But plenty of things where you can say, oh, they got to improve on that. Oh, this needs to be better. It's tough because this is OTA, so most of the work they do is all the work that they do, there's no hitting, right? But most of the work they're doing on top of that is without even linemen presenting a simulated rush against the passing game. So I take everything with a grain of salt. All the hype throws that you've seen from him, take that with a grain of salt. All the negative you've seen from him, take that with a grain of salt, because admittedly, they are encouraging him to try some things as he gets his feet wet, rather, in the NFL. You've heard teammates talk about it, defensive teammates. You heard head coach Matt Eberflus talk about it. You heard Caleb talk about wanting to be perfect. And so I think when you hear those types of things and then you see what they do on the field, like, it doesn't look like it's just like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, can I get away with this at this level? Most of the time it's been not, right? You've seen him try to fit some throws into some tight windows that he can't make. But then you, again, conversely, on the positive side, you've seen him fit some throws into some windows that you hope to see more often on Sundays, and I think maybe that we didn't see in the past few years, out of trust, maybe out of a lack of ability, whatever the case may be. You just didn't see them as often as you wanted to. I think that you will see those this year, even if it's just out of him trying stuff. There is a naturalness, and I think I've talked about this before on the pod. My take on the Bears quarterback situation really kind of solidified during the postseason as I watched some of the other quarterback play around the league. It's kind of hard when you're watching your team week in and week out, in my case, day in and day out, and then to get a proper evaluation of where you are compared to everybody else. But when you sit back with no football for the Bears going on, I was able to watch just how the other quarterbacks go about matriculating the ball down the field, right? And even just in a single play. And there's a fluidity that I think was lacking in the Bears passing game. Not necessarily completing all the passes. That's not to say that Justin Fields wasn't playing well in stretches. It's to say that there was just not a fluidity, a smoothness to the passing game, to the offense in general, that I think they are hoping to get from Caleb. I'm not going to say that you're going to get it yet, but I've seen flashes of some of the natural passing talent that you've heard his teammates comment on, and so there's going to be growing pains. It's a rookie. That was my biggest takeaway, is that we're going to see some ups and downs, but I do understand why they feel like they might have had a better starting point with Williams than a point to continue from with Fields after last season. So not surprised there to any degree when I came out of that. And again, if you're not, you should be following me on X, Josh G. Buck, and at Clocker Sports to get the updates about the Bears practices when we get back for training camp and games, post-game, reaction, all that stuff, getting interviews. Also follow the TikTok channel, Clocker Sports, and on YouTube, Clocker Sports, so that you can get the interviews, post-game, locker room stuff. Going to do a lot of big things this year, trying to get some interviews. I'm going to try to, I'm still debating whether or not I want to restart the other Clocker Sports podcast to have that be for NFL, for Bears content when I get some one-on-one stuff. Fingers crossed. So keep your ears perked up for that. But yeah, it's follow TikTok, YouTube. Follow all those channels so you can make sure that you're getting all the updates. And like I said, I came away from this mini camp session feeling like there is a good starting point there, but it's a starting point for sure. Now, how that plays out with the defense and the rest of the team, honestly, that's kind of built to win right now, remains to be seen. But we know that, it doesn't matter that you're a rookie. You can still make a big splash in your division and even in your conference in the case of the Houston Texans if you are built adequately, coached adequately around that rookie quarterback. And if that rookie quarterback delivers on the promise that he has. So the Bears, I know, are hoping that from Williams. Elsewhere around the team, there were some injuries that were, I guess kind of brushed aside by Eberflus, noting that they were more precautionary than anything. I believe the last day there was no Kyler Gordon. I don't know if we saw Cole Kmet suit up and get on the field, to actually practice in any of the 3 days. A few other guys are gone, and then I know for a fact that Braxton Jones, left tackle Braxton Jones. Now he's been rather durable. He missed some time last year, but he was a healthy guy in his rookie season, so maybe he can back to that. That probably is less of a concern right now, although it's your left tackle, so it's immediately a concern when he's not around, not available to practice with your rookie quarterback, who is the unquestioned starter right now. I have a little funny thought about the backup situation. Not funny, I guess, but funny the writing's almost on the wall already. But the question that I have along the offensive line revolves around Nate Davis. He has not practiced. He was there in attendance, but the comments that Matt Eberflus made after one of the practices was kind of striking, in which he kind of suggested that it might not be locked that Nate Davis is the Bears' starting right guard come next season. And he's talked about how they're trying to find different combinations and who worked, and they're trying different guys there. And they have some options. But Nate Davis was signed in free agency last year, and I'm pulling up the contract right now to make sure I have the terms correct. But he was signed. He was a big get for them in free agency last year, a 3-year, $30 million contract that had a $19.25 million guaranteed, right? Nate Davis did not play a full season last year, and was due to personal reasons, some injury concerns or injury issues and all that kind of stuff. I remember talking to him a couple of times, and he spoke candidly about the appreciation for the support that the Bears had. I think it was the loss of a family member that he was going through personally, on top of the injury stuff last year. Only played in 11 games, and intermittently at that. It wasn't even like consistent 11 games. There were some stretches where he was gone, back, and then gone again, and then back again. The offensive line undoubtedly needs to have some continuity to it, right? That's goes without question. So not having Nate Davis there is already a problem in and of itself. If you're not settled on Nate Davis being the starter, I think that needs to be something that gets settled immediately, because you don't want to have that kind of an issue lingering into the season where you're rotating that. We've seen that. It doesn't work. It does not work at all, and that's kind of why they kind of revamped the offensive line last offseason to bring in Davis and move Tevin Jenkins over to the left guard, so on and so forth. The Bears can cut Nate Davis, but it would cost them $12.25 million or $12.75 million. Excuse me. I'm looking at the contract details right now. Make sure, like I say, to get it right. After this season, they can cut him with only a $2 million dead cap and save $9.5 million. So it's quite possible that Nate Davis's deal turns out to be a 2-year deal, and the Bears end up getting up out of that with minimal damage. $2 million cap hit is you don't want to take it, but they've done well with their cap hit in recent years, so they should be able to absorb that and make it work. But that's a damning sign for a guy, damning comments really, to not be guaranteed your starting spot when you were their touted guy. But it is proof positive that it's a ongoing evaluation of their talent. They're not beholden to a guy simply because they paid him a lot of money, which you can judge that however you want to. But at the time, it was held at one of the better moves of the offseason. So that it hasn't panned out is unfortunate, but it doesn't sound like they are going to just keep throwing him out there or keep a spot warm for him as long as he doesn't perform like he's supposed to. So that was encouraging in a sense, but also kind of striking to hear. Like I said, they just brought him in last year, but it's been far less than what I think anybody has expected when he signed, even though there were stories about his practice habits coming out of Tennessee last season. So very affable guy when you talk to him. Was, like I said, very open about the support that the Bears gave him through his trials and tribulations last year. Haven't gotten a chance to speak with him this season, so we'll see how that goes and what he has had to say about the missing and absence. And matter of fact, by the time they come back, it might be a non-issue when training camp rolls around. So that being said, it is something to keep an eye on because the offensive line needs to have that continuity, and they just have not had it this so far in the offseason program. The biggest question marks remaining, I think, would have to be that you don't have your full front five. We're not even certain who the starting center is going to be, right? Coleman Shelton. Is it going to be Ryan Bates? Is it going to be Doug Kramer? Now, my personal money has been on Shelton, who's got the most starting experience at that spot. We know Bates has been a guy they targeted since last year, but he's been mostly a guard and was not an effective starter. So that would be that's just my thought, my gut. It could be very wrong. It's happened before. Will happen again. I don't think Kramer is there yet. I don't think that they have given up on Kramer, but I think that they still they need something a little bit more proven. And like I said, Shelton and Bates offer that, especially the former. So that would be still the biggest question mark. And then other than that, obviously, it's pass rusher, right? You've filled out your secondary. We saw you spend big money on linebacker. People are questioning the defensive line and especially defensive tackle, but covering the team since last year, more than since last year, but covering this group, especially in particular, rather, they are high on Javon Dexter. The team is high on Javon Dexter, like his teammates. Former defensive tackle, Bears defensive tackle Justin Jones was one of the people who championed Dexter as a guy who can have a special career in this league. So that's a guy that I think I'm looking for big things from this coming season. Excited to talk to him about what he's planning for himself. He's been very vocal about his plans to have a big year. So looking forward to that. Zach Pickens can probably be a surprise as well because he should have more opportunities with Dexter stepping to the starting lineup alongside Andrew Billings there. And Billings is a nose tackle. We know they like to rotate those guys anyway. So I would expect that we see a lot more of Dexter and Pickens this year, both of whom have flashed their potential that made them become, Bears picks in 2023. So looking forward to that as well. But the defensive end spot opposite of Montez Sweat is a question mark. I like DeMarcus Walker and what he brings to the team. I think he's more valuable in a I don't want to call it a sub role, but maybe a super sub role where he's getting close to, if not starter snaps, by rotating inside and outside, especially with the way the defensive line is shaped up now with the departure of Jones and the guys that you brought in, Byron Carr. There's not a lot of proven depth there. So I think that having him available to switch between those two inside and outside tackling in is highly valuable, and it's part of what makes him so valuable with his toughness, his physicality, and his leadership, but it's also his versatility on along the front. So that would be one option there. And then you have young guys in Dominique Robinson, who has not, the light has not turned on for him just yet. He's got the tools. You've seen him flash some, but not nearly enough, and definitely not in games when it matters. So that's what the Bears were looking for from him this spring. I would imagine he's, if not on, close to the last legs of trying to be. He's a converted wide receiver. So this is a guy who, it's been a while since he converted, but it's still a guy who is learning the position, is still very young in terms of being a defensive end. So there's some learning curves there. And then they have rookie 6th round pick. I might have that wrong. Austin Booker, who they are excited about. His profile is very similar to Montez Sweat, maybe a little bit lighter coming out of college, but they are excited about what he can do and his frame and his ceiling. So, but it's still a question mark. There's not a guarantee. I actually wrote about this for Clocker Sports. They're Yannick Ngakoue, who signed with the Bears last year on a 1-year, $10 million deal, and ended up breaking his ankle in like week 10 or 11, late in the season. It never really panned out, but he was kind of working by himself before Montez Sweat got there, and then he got hurt and really couldn't get to see it. He could be a very low-cost, smart addition that would allow you to continue to develop Robinson and Booker until they are really ready, but it also allows you, like I said, to keep Walker in that swing role where he can both play inside and outside, especially on pass rushing downs. So pass rushing downs with Dexter, with Walker on the inside, Sweat on one side, and then Yannick Ngakoue healthy, who he says he's working his way back. Again, check that out on Clocker Sports, Yannick Ngakoue. I believe it was break silence on free agency or something along those lines. ClockerSports.com, you can check that out. That would be a low-key, low-cost, cost-efficient, cost-effective, however you want to phrase it, signing that I think could pan out a lot better the second time around, especially if he's healthy, than the first time, because you already have one guy to help. You're not counting on Ngakoue, who's always been more of a complimentary, even if at his peak is a high-end complimentary player, off of the base player in Montez Sweat. So that would be something that I would keep an eye on. It's familiarity, low cost, like I said, and he's got a lot to prove. He wants to prove it. It sounded like he might feel like he's not coming back to Chicago, but if I was the Bears, I would probably kick the tires on that to see how healthy he is, when he'll be fully healthy, ready to go for camp and all that kind of stuff, because he's not only kind of he's built like the perfect complement to Montez Sweat. He's also a good guy in the locker room who was helping to pump up the young guys as they were trying to come along last year. So that's out of the young players' mouths, not just him saying that he wanted to do that. That was them saying that he was being that kind of guy. So also the Bears announced, Matty Burford announced that they will have a joint practice. I got to pick up the date. I tweeted out. I am not looking it up right now. But they have a joint practice with the Bengals. That will be at Soldier Field. I'm excited about that because they had the one with Indy last year, but that was in Indy, so I did not have a chance to go. Still we're not raking it in yet to get to travel with the team. With you guys' help, we'll hopefully get there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out all the stuff on Clocker Sports. We will get there soon enough. But they will have the Bengals in town to have a joint practice, which I think would be exciting just to see how, that's a Super Bowl contender, right? And you're trying to see what you are early on in the season. I think there's no better way than to go up against a team like that with very little at stake. They might, hold back because they don't want to risk injury before such an important season for them as well. But at the same time, you also don't want to come away from this feeling like you got, punked. In any way, shape, or form. These are competitors at the end of the day. We hear them say it all the time. So I would expect that to be spirited practice, borderline, let's calm it down. But I think that they're going to have a good experience from that all in all. Now, we can move on to the rest of the NFL because we will have we'll be back to talk Bears, when they get back for training camp in the next episode, obviously. But we'll have some more outlines. We'll talk about some projections, maybe some other guys that they could look forward to adding this offseason, where I expect their biggest surprises to come from, who could be setting them up for a disappointment, and all those types of things in the next episode. So let's go to the rest of the league right now, starting off with the Denver Broncos, who are facing a lawsuit from current Tampa Bay Buccaneers outside linebacker Randy Gregory. Gregory, if you remember, was a Dallas Cowboys draft pick, dealt with a lot of off-field troubles, mostly leading to suspensions for drug use, THC, marijuana, and that is actually at the heart of his lawsuit that includes the Broncos, but it's really targeting the NFL, his lawyer says, in an effort to recoup some of the lost wages that they took from him due to fines over his THC use. Gregory has been diagnosed with on top of other things, various forms of post-traumatic stress disorder. His attorneys have spoken out, released statements. I wrote about this for Heavy on Broncos. Go ahead and check that out. But they are basically saying that it's legal for use in the state of Colorado. It's legal for use for people across the country. Basically, it's a medication, and yet he's being penalized for following his doctor's orders. So we'll see how far it can go. Like I said, it's not expected to entangle the Broncos too much. It's mostly going to be a league issue, but their name is there, and when that happens, you tend to be in the headline even if you aren't really in the story itself. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Also, I'm currently working on a story about Bo Nix being the biggest question, at the heart of the biggest question for the Broncos before they hit training camp. So check out what all that information is, and we're just gonna leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. The Bo Nix is the biggest question mark facing the Broncos heading into training camp. The Kansas City Chiefs, B.J. Thompson, suffered a seizure and cardiac arrest during a team meeting. He's on the road to recovery, stabilized and doing well. Kicker Harrison Butker, who was at the center of a lot of controversy over his commencement ceremony speech, in which he basically kind of touted old-fashioned values over what he considered to be the new wave of things, and caught a lot of backlash for it. I don't know if this is part of the Chiefs' rehab plan for his image, but it works out regardless, in that he was one of the people who helped to alert team officials to Thompson's issues, and so they are getting him back, wishing him a speedy recovery, because that is a scary situation, and just another wild twist and turn in what has been like an under-the-radar, tumultuous offseason for the Chiefs. For as much as been happening, they really haven't been spotlighted like that, right? Like, you'll hear the event and then it kind of just goes by the wayside. But it's been a lot of Chiefs stuff going on between the Travis Kelce potentially retiring. He's still dating Taylor Swift, so when are you going to get married? And Jason Sudeikis, like all types of stuff. But yet it doesn't feel like the reigning NFL champions, right, are a major storyline this offseason. It's been kind of odd, and maybe that's just my perception of the whole situation, but that's definitely where I'm at with it. And the Minnesota Vikings. So I want to say this. When I was a kid, my first favorite player in the NFL was Randy Moss. It was actually Junior Seau, but I'm talking about like that I was cognizant of what was happening. Like, I like Junior Seau because his name was Junior Seau. I just like to say Junior Seau. And then I got to appreciate him as a player. But the one from the moment that I was like, oh, that dude can ball, Randy Moss, right? And I remember going to a wrestling event and wearing a Randy Moss jersey. Now, I say all that to say this. I have always had an appreciation for the Vikings and the purple and the presence that it brought, and the horns. They unleashed or released, I guess. That's how much I appreciate it. But they revealed their all white white-out uniforms for use one time, I think, this coming season. Man, these things are slick. Now, I know we've seen various iterations of this over the years. There are teams that have them, regularly. You had the Jets were all white mostly with their green highlights for years. And more recently, you have the Bengals who've gotten their snow tiger look going on. I have long wanted the Bears to get a polar bear kind of look, all white uniform kind of look. It looks really clean when you do it right with the I don't want to, what's the primary color? Because the primary is purple, but their yellow accents on it look nice. The purple accents on it look nice. It's not yellow, it's purple. It's a very good look, purple and silver. When you see it, it's clean. And I'm just saying, from a division rival, a fan of a division rival, to a team in said division, hats off. You did it right. That is a very clean look. Very clean look. Now, on to the football stuff. They have a lot going on. They signed Justin Jefferson to that massive $140 million contract. He reset the market for wide receivers. There are questions, and this is going to be the one that I'm working on for them right now, or actually just went up, was that J.J. McCarthy is at the heart of their biggest question, and when he's going to be ready to start. The funny thing about that is a lot of it's going to have to do with Sam Darnold. J.J. McCarthy could play well, but if Sam Darnold's playing better, then that's going to be an issue. Where it becomes an issue for the Vikings for real is that if Darnold is playing well in the preseason and despite McCarthy playing okay, they continue to roll with Darnold because he's looking good. The reason for that is, as it's been pointed out many times, most recently by Ian Rappaport on The Insiders about a week or so ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. But he talked about how this is kind of what Sam Darnold does, and that he shows well in the preseason, in the offseason programs, and things of that nature, even in garbage time. But when it counts is when he struggles. And so my concern for the Vikings would be that, they're buying into a false sense of security. And that's what I wrote about with Darnold, in that they feel like they can roll with him and spend another season trying to tread water until McCarthy's ready, when in fact it might be better off to roll with McCarthy, who, despite his limited throwing exposure as a collegian, he has come from a pro style system, has been touted as somebody who can adapt quickly to the situation because of that. And so I think, and he's your quarterback of the future. There's no doubt about that. So if I were the Vikings, unless Sam Darnold was lighting the world up, I don't need him to be solid. If he's not lighting the world up, I'm not going to be afraid to turn to McCarthy and have those growing pains that are going to come anyway. I might want to get him out of the way sooner rather than later, especially if it shows that, he just doesn't have it. And I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I'm always in favor of finding out as soon as possible, especially with something so monumental like the quarterback of the future. But they have a plan, and the plan is going to be to let Darnold start until McCarthy proves that he is ready and takes that job from him. I just want to know if there's a chance that Sam Darnold could give it away as well. And I think there is, but I just want to know maybe more so what is that threshold. Interesting stuff, man. I'm really excited for training camp to come around. I don't have win predictions just yet. I got to see what happens when we get to training camp, who makes it out of camp healthy, and I kind of want to see a couple of the preseason is so different now. It's not played the same. They don't deal with it. They don't handle it the same. So it's kind of hard to get a read from that too. But I guess maybe I'm looking for mostly health and any other additions that are made to any of the teams that are coming around that I'm covering, especially, and then elsewhere around the NFL too. So switching gears, talking about the NBA Finals. So, like I said, I was going to record and then realized it was game one of the finals, so I couldn't record without having that new info at my disposal. And we saw exactly what I think what a lot of people expected coming out of this one. Now, full disclosure, I do have a live bet riding on the Dallas Mavericks to take this series. However, I am into that bet knowing full well that it might not go that way because the Celtics have been a juggernaut all season long. They showed it in their 107-89 victory that was not as close as that final score shows. Dallas fell behind by as close to 30 points early on and was playing catch-up the whole game. Now, they got it back down to 5, but as I often say, when you are working to get back into a game like that, it takes so much energy that the hardest part is always closing that last gap and getting over the hump, right? You say you get down by, like they did, damn near 30. Your goals are then, let's get it down to 15, right? Let's get it down to 10 before we get to the X minute mark or before we switch to the next quarter. They got to within 5, but that's always that hardest part to overcome. It's all, and you see it time and time again, teams that fall behind rally, but then the other team catches that second win and it's too late. I'm not sure that we'll see Dallas shoot that poorly again. Kyrie Irving has had a horrible game. He's talked about how the Celtics have had his number over the years. Maybe that's a signal to Jason Kidd to try to use him more as a decoy than as an actual scoring threat, to try to get some of the other guys going too, because you're not going to win against these Celtics who can get 20 easily from each of their starting 5 and then some, right? Guys off the bench can get you 20 as well, not 22 points. For the Mavericks, it's got to be heliocentric. It's got to be Luka and Kyrie, and then guys have to hit shots off of that. One guy who can do more, PJ Washington, but even he's a guy that's going to more fill in the blanks and fit in around Luka and Kyrie doing their thing. So it was demoralizing. I was hoping to see Dallas come out and steal a game, and that would have helped me feel better about my bet that I got standing right now. But they didn't. They got smacked in the mouth, and it's only one game, and I know that the mantra is always that, to treat it that way. But the manner in which it happened had to be deflating if you're a Mavericks fan, and had to be encouraging as if you're the Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis came in and looked like he had been playing at an MVP level damn near for most of the season, and an all-star caliber at the very least, and hadn't played in more than a month. Right? They had just been keeping him on ice. And I don't know what answer Dallas has for that. So if he's going to keep playing like that, it's already over. In which case it might, coming out of the game, that's kind of how I feel anyway. But it was a smack. And then now coming out of that, going into game 2, I don't know if this is smart. I heard it praised as such. Jason Kidd talking about, he's not surprised at Jaylen Brown's game because Jaylen Brown is the best player. And I was just like, I don't know if I agree with that. Talking about Brown being better than Jason Tatum. Now, Jason Tatum did not have a strong scoring night, did not shoot the ball well in game 1, but he had a very good floor game. Where I think it's weird is that they're kind of really just different. I don't know if they're even better. I think they might be really just 1A, 1B, and that can change on any given night. Tatum is probably the better offensive threat, right, in terms of being a more efficient scorer. I want to say effective, but more efficient scorer when he wants to be, playmaker, right? He can also defend very well at a high level. He rebounds well. Jaylen Brown's a better two-way player, right? He's a better defender. He's not as good of a scorer, but he's still a really good scorer, still a really effective scorer. He's strong. He's aggressive, maybe more physically demanding when you're facing him than Tatum is because of how aggressive and how physical he plays. My thing is with Kidd, man, they already spanked you, bro. Like, why are you trying to create a rift? Something they've addressed over the years many times, that it doesn't really even matter, but they've talked about it. So I don't know if that was the smart choice. They don't play again until Sunday. Hats off to you for feeling confident enough to try to put that out there, but I don't think that is going to work in their benefit. I would be more concerned about how do I keep my rookie center out of foul trouble? How do I get more from a guy, like I said, from PJ Washington, who had 14 points in the game, but he's probably going to need to be about 20-25 if they're going to win this series. For the Celtics, man, just keep doing what you're doing. I don't think there's anything else to really say about that, because you guys showed they have the 5-out capability, they have the depth, and they have right now the health to make this a very swift series. And so if I was Dallas, I would be, it's all out. I'm pulling out all the stops to get this W in game 2, and then we'll try to formulate a new plan to get get another one in game 3 and 4 and so on and so forth. But it was spooky hours coming out of that game 1. I'm not even going to hold you. Talking about some more local stuff, because, I said to address that finals thing because that was the reason why the first delay happened, and then technical, whatever. We here now. Switching over to the Chicago Bulls, they are doing what they're doing. The Bulls have touted continuity over the past 2 off seasons, and then this off season, Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations Arturas Karnisovas vowed to bring changes to a roster that he admitted has not been good enough. The Bulls have just 1 postseason appearance in his 4 years at the helm. They were dispatched in 5 games by the eventual champion, I believe it was Milwaukee Bucks in 2020, 2021. And so, you look at what they have not done, which is make a trade during the season since acquiring Nikola Vucevic. There's not a lot of encouraging things in his track record, right? He stood pat on so much that when you see moves like the Bulls have made this offseason to extend Mark Eversley, which has already happened, it just got leaked late, to hire Billy Donovan's son to be head coach of the Windy City G League team, which I have less problem with than a lot of people, because he has been working as a coaching assistant for years now. It's not a new, just a completely nepotism hire, but it's hard to ignore the nepotism in it. There's just a lot of things that won't change, which makes it hard to believe that the product on the floor will change, at least enough to make any noticeable difference. That was, he vowed to be more aggressive last offseason and came back speaking of missed opportunity or things that just didn't come to fruition. Came away with Andre Drummond again, who came back but could have opted out. Torrey Craig, Javon Carter, lost Derrick Jones Jr., who actually talked about it, before going to the finals. There's not a lot of things that make you feel like Karnisovas will make the necessary changes or even admit to coming short in doing so. He'll just say that nothing that I liked. That means, that doesn't work when you're coming off of the seasons that the Bulls have had, when you're dealing with the long-term outlook uncertainty that the Bulls have right now. You're dealing with a 30-something-year-old DeMar DeRozan who wants a contract that Darnell Mayberry of The Athletic predicts could pay him upwards of $40 million in the final year. That could be on a player option, no less. So, like, you give them control to keep him around when the winning hasn't been there for no reason. They still want to trade Zach LaVine, which, okay, but you have to be willing to trade Zach LaVine. And I get not taking pennies on the dollar. I wouldn't recommend doing that at all. You do wonder how highly, though, they are valuing their players. We've heard the asking prices for Alex Caruso, wrote something about that for Heavy on Bulls, and what a proposal that could bring back Bobby Portis. I think that would be a great idea. It was Bobby Portis, Marjon Beauchamp, and a couple of first-round draft picks. That's a really good haul for Alex Caruso, who, for as great as he's been, has not helped the Bulls get over that hump himself, and is an aging player at 30 years old who has dealt with injuries. Right? These are moves that the team has to make to better flesh out a roster that has been built on grit and toughness, but lacks the things that actually help you win basketball games consistently. Size, you need three-point shooting, you need some defense, and I mean defense more than just at the guard position, which Caruso plays 1 through 4. But at 6'5", there's a lot of fours that he's just a chair against, right? He's just there. So I think a Portis move would help a lot just to build out the size. I don't know if he'd want to come back, right? Because they did him kind of dirty. He said he was blindsided by that trade when it happened in 2019. So, but just the Bulls are entering a very interesting portion of their offseason, or in their franchise history, rather, that they're saying one thing, but a lot of the moves they're making before they can actually start changing up that roster that they've promised to do so with, they scream much of the same things from the last years. Because if the voices aren't changing, the people making those decisions aren't changing, how are we to expect anything that you are putting out to change? That's just pure and simple. DeMar DeRozan admitted that he does not like Dillon Brooks in a recent interview on the 2510 podcast with Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy, former Philadelphia Eagles stars. DeRozan, a 6-time All-Star, admitted that his altercation with Dillon Brooks of the Houston Rockets last year, I think in March, during the season, during March, during the season when DeRozan pushed Jalen Green and Brooks ran up behind him. He said that while rule number one was that, you don't walk up on a man behind him, this and the third, because he grabbed Dillon Brooks, told him to get the F away from me, basically. Don't put your hands, something along those lines. It was don't, he hemmed him up like Dillon Brooks tried to do with him. They're the same size, so I don't know what Dillon Brooks thought he was going to accomplish. Trying to intimidate somebody. But anyway, DeRozan said that he just doesn't like him. He doesn't like he doesn't like him. And then he explained about the walking up behind somebody. DeRozan also said that he did not intend to push Jalen Green as hard as he did, but he admitted to being frustrated over the previous play, which was a lack of a foul call on a drive. Before that, though, which everybody thought was the reason for the foul, Green had blocked him. Now, DeRozan did not mention that part. They didn't bring that up during the pod, but that definitely happened. And I think that's what maybe that's what he was thinking of when asked if he was still frustrated over the play before. But it definitely happened. He cleared him, and it went down for a second. DeRozan's coming out of that. I remember DeRozan said his biggest regret was actually not being able to finish the game because he and Brooks both got ejected. But that's a funny storyline in the offseason because, a lot of people don't like Dillon Brooks, and it just that's why. Especially because if you're not gonna bust a grape in a fruit fight, let me say it properly if I'm gonna try to roast somebody. If you're gonna not do that, then you probably shouldn't be out here putting hands on people, because if you put hands on somebody, the paws get put back on you, and then if you're not ready for that, or if you're not gonna do it, whatever. Switching to the Hawks, the Atlanta Hawks. Listen, I wrote about this a few weeks ago, but I am not of the camp that they should split up DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. Yes, they are two smaller guards for their positions. Yes, they had a negative net rating together last year, but this is also the same group that was part of one of the better starting lineups in 2022-23 together. This is also a duo that still had some positive lineups this year when you go through the numbers, and instead of just looking at them as a whole. That gets tricky because you're breaking into sample sizes, and the numbers in smaller groups are going to be skewed compared to the larger ones. At the same time, though, you're also looking at smaller sample sizes when you're breaking down the negative stuff, and I know that's the overwhelming majority, but my point is, that doesn't mean that there aren't tweaks that can get you more in line with that positive flow, which is what general manager Landry Fields has alluded to, even when talking about landing the number 1 overall pick. So in my estimation, and I think the Mavericks are one of the better examples of this, but you got to build that roster. If you're going to have two guys who are offensive, ball dominant more often than not, then you got to build them out with guys who are ready to catch and shoot and who can defend on the other end of the floor. They have some good bones. DeAndre Hunter and Jalen Johnson can both be that guy. The two-way forwards who can catch and shoot, who can do a little bit of everything else when you need them to as well. And then maybe you find your pivot like a Derek Lively in Alexander Sarr or Donovan Clingan, who head coach Quinn Snyder supposedly likes a lot and is pushing for. Those are the options that they have. I just don't feel like moving one of Trae Young or DeJounte Murray in most deals, not in every deal, but most of the rumored potential packages that we're going to get back from those guys. Most of the time, it's not worth it. There are a rare few. I saw one for Ingram and Dyson Daniels that would have sent out Murray and Bogdanovich, and you got draft picks back with that. You got to consider stuff like that, right? 2 picks, 2 players. That can help me out right now and in the future because they're both young enough to do both of those things. That's something that you got to think about. But like dumping them for salary, getting back, incongruous players who are just going to create log jams at other positions, who aren't going to elevate your ceiling, useless draft capital that's not going to help you now or even be valuable enough when it does convey to help you then. Like these are things that they should be avoiding. And that was the underlying basis. Like those aren't going to be, the good side is not going to be as often, as plentiful as those people who are trying to shade you. Even if you're going to have a bidding war, they're going to try to win the deal. The Hawks have to win this deal. Whatever they do this offseason, they have to win it. And winning that on paper does not translate to team success. However, we've seen them lose it in recent years, and that translates to team failures and shortcomings and things of that nature. At least so it seems. So I would be wary of breaking up a star duo that costs so much to get and put together without exhausting all my options to put the best supporting cast around those guys. And I'm not sure that we've done that yet, especially in the back line. Capella won me over. When I first joined Soaring Down South, I actually wrote about how they had to get rid of Capella because I just didn't see him being a long-term solution. When he was out, I got an appreciation for what he brought, the rebounding, the physicality, the toughness, the IQ. However, over the years, it's still glaringly obvious that they need some more offense from that position, some more offensive threat, some more athleticism from that threat, some more size from that threat, right? And at the heart of it, some more rim protection. Being a good defender in the paint does not mean you are a good rim protector, and vice versa. They really need both, which is why Clingan probably makes a lot of sense. But maybe it's that simple. It could be that simple. Remember, the Mavericks struggled. They missed the playoffs last year, right? They were a lot. That's how they got Derek Lively. They got the 10th pick because they missed the postseason. This year they were struggling before making some moves. It's not as far-fetched of an idea as it probably seems, depending on how closely you've been following a lot of the rhetoric coming out of it. But it has to be – it's a tough decision to make because you might not get too many opportunities to make another one like this. And so I can understand them wanting to kind of go full steam ahead with whatever plan that they've had in place. But I don't think you give up on a star duo like this, ones who want to work together more importantly, and then who have shown flashes of what it could be when things are done right. Now, again, the Trae Young, DeJounte Murray was an issue that was brought up when they were first put together under Nate McMillan. So this is not surprising to see it play out this way now. At the time then, though, it was more about trying to split them up. I still think that might be the best way. Just figure out how you can best split them up for the bulk of the game, and then when you need them in there together, make sure you have that sub package in around them to maximize their effectiveness. Maybe that's the simplest way possible to put it. It's probably oversimplifying it, but that's where I would go before I actually try to split them apart. The Lakers are, I guess, flipping gears themselves, going from zeroing in on analyst JJ Redick, who does not have coaching experience, but is a podcast, host with LeBron James and has worked as an analyst for a few years now, one of the more respected voices in basketball media. That's a risky proposition, right? And so when I heard that, I was taken aback. I am far less surprised about their pivot from Redick to a collegiate coach in Dan Hurley, back-to-back national champion that he is, because he's got that experience. He's been through the fire and proven that he can win at the highest level, even if it is at a lower level. Now, that coming to the NBA has had mixed bag. I just told you about, the Billy Donovan experience has not been great. And maybe I didn't explain on that enough, but I wrote about that for Heavy on Bulls, so go ahead and check that out when I talked about their quote-unquote nepotism hire with Billy Donovan III. But back to the Lakers here. This is the premier job, right, in terms of the position where you're at, the market. you're going to throw a first-time head coach in there who, as personable and as charismatic as he is, you know, the bright lights of coaching in that environment can break down the best of them. You just came from a rookie head coach who's had a lot of coaching experience, right? Years of coaching experience under his belt to his credit for good teams, and it didn't work out. I just don't know how there's much belief that J.J. Redick's going to come in and take this team to new heights. I'm not saying it's impossible. We've seen it before. Steve Kerr was an analyst. Pat Riley was an analyst before he became a head coach. Like these are the examples that the Lakers are leaning into themselves. But that's why it makes sense to me to target Dan Hurley. I will say it's interesting that he left L.A. to go ponder. Now, that's a monumental decision for him and his family and his school. So I get wanting to have more time. If I'm a Lakers fan, I guess, fans short for fanatic. So I would probably wonder, damn, they didn't seal the deal, right? They couldn't get him to agree to something before he left town, which maybe be a little concerning. J.R. Smith has warned him about taking that job. There's so much contingency on what LeBron James wants to do, he could become a free agent this offseason, and that would change the dynamic of the entire roster. There's a lot that's baked into that would make sense if it gave Hurley a bit of a pause before he decided to accept the job. So it's a very fascinating decision on top of whatever moves they're going to make to improve their roster this year, because they can't run that back and expect to have any better results. Even if they think that Darvin Ham was part of the problem last year, I don't think that you can expect a first-time head coach, because that's who it seems like it's going to be, either Redick or Hurley. You can't expect them to flip all of the issues that ailed the team last year. I did write about a Brandon Ingram trade for the New York Knicks, one that would be very costly, to keep together. But if you're trying to, make that push, maximize your championship winner, because as we know, it can change year to year. There's a deal that could work where you send, oft-injured centered Mitchell Robinson and veteran Bojan Bogdanovic to the Pelicans for Ingram. The money can work. You can field a roster that has variable, multifaceted scoring options in Ingram, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, right? That gives you space to bring back Isaiah Hartenstein. So please check that out on Heavy on Knicks. Very proud of that article, just because of how I think it works. Like, it was one of the things that came to my head, and as I wrote it, I was like, this actually makes a lot more sense. And even if you think that it comes too expensive next season, they can look at trading Julius Randle again. Right, that's when you can explore in earnest next season. So I think it's a deal that could help keep them from being bogged down offensively next season, even if it doesn't help raise their defense. We know that Tom Thibodeau is going to get a good defense out of whatever he has, so that would alleviate those concerns for me. It's just a deal that makes sense on paper and would make a lot of sense on the floor as well. And then finally, the Philadelphia 76ers have options. They are trying to build a championship contender around Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Maxey expected to get a $205 million contract. Wrote about that for Heavy on Sixers. Go ahead and check that out. About a week or so ago, maybe a little bit more. DeMar DeRozan's been listed as an option. Zach LaVine, Paul George, Jimmy Butler. It's kind of odd because for the Sixers, they went from being the team that was pushing the process, the slow roll, we're going to be as bad as we can to get as good as we can in the long term. Now they're looking to have to retool on the fly and surrender some significant assets to add that third star because they haven't gotten where they were supposed to with the only real return from the process is Joel Embiid. You could talk about anything else, but that's the only real return that's become anything. And even that has not lived up to what you wanted. He's been hurt a lot. He dealt with Bell's palsy last year. Like, he's dealt with a lot of injury issues that wiped out the first 2 seasons of his career, maybe just one, but I know he lost his rookie season for sure. Hasn't been to beyond the second round of the postseason. Like, there's a lot at stake with this offseason for the Sixers and all their variable options. And it's almost concerning that they could have so many paths to take because that gives you that many more options to mess it up. And as they've shown, they have a tendency to do that. So that would be the only concern that I would have if I was a Sixers fan. But I do think that they have some of the better options out there just in terms of their flexibility. But what you do with that matters far more than actually having the flexibility. So Yeah, keep an eye on those teams, and like I said, that's the format that we're trying to run with now. I hope everybody enjoyed a little bit more in depth conversation about some of the things that we have seen, or some of the things that we talked about rather today. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on X at Josh G Buck. Follow the show at 3 Zeros Pod. That's the number 3 Zeros Pod on X, on Facebook, and on X and Facebook, and then follow the site. Clockersports.com, Clocker Sports on X, Clocker Sports on Instagram, Clocker Sports on TikTok, Clocker Sports on YouTube, and of course read all the work, man. Heavy on Bulls, heavy on Lakers, heavy on Knicks, heavy on Sixers, heavy on Celtics, Nuggets. We're trying to get all the teams. We'll get all 30 before that's all said and done. Also heavy on heavy on Vikings, heavy on Broncos, soaring down south for all my Hawk stuff, and of course you can check out clockersports.com to get every single thing aggregated for you on the homepage. We're trying to revamp that too, and maybe get a more Bears-centric page up there for all my direct info, and then all the other aggregate stuff will fall in someplace along those lines. But like I said, check everything, man. We're working. We work around here, man. We're trying to raise our level to another notch. The goal is to be able to travel with the team next season. We're trying to work towards that. That is a tangible goal that I can establish on top of all the other things that we want to do with the website, with the podcast and things of that nature. So please appreciate all the support that you have given. Share, review, rate, tell your friends, all those great things, so we can keep doing the stuff that we are doing. And until the very next time, you already know what it is, man. I'm gone.